This is Meteo Mundo.
Hi everyone, I'm Meteo Mundo Chief Meteorologist Rusty McCraney. This is a special video. We're going to be highlighting and talking a lot about Hurricane Idalia, and what I'm going to be doing actually is analyzing all of our radar imagery and the forecast models with you. So I've actually got my computer sitting right here. We'll kind of go over this together, recording this just a little bit after the Monday 8 p.m. advisory, and I can actually show you those statistics right now on screen. So Idalia is a Category 2 hurricane. Winds are 105 miles an hour. You'll see that it says 103, but the Hurricane Center and their public advisories, they always round to the nearest 5 miles an hour, which is why the public advisory will say 105. Pressure's down to 965 millibars. Idalia is nothing but strengthened throughout the day. It is moving to the north around 16 to 18 miles an hour. Movement is north, and if you see that 10 in parentheses, that's at 10 degrees or just slightly east of north. And that's important because Idalia had been moving basically due north all day, but it's just beginning at least a wobble, if nothing else, slightly east of north. And the Hurricane Center thinks that that will continue, not a due north track up towards the western sides of Apalachicola Bay, but more of a north to northeast track, eventually swinging in towards the Big Bend. Still forecast to be a Category 3 hurricane, a major Category 3 with winds of at least 115 miles an hour as it makes landfall sometime during the morning hours of our Wednesday. So this is the live look from the Tampa Bay radar. Obviously, the center of circulation is very defined. Some of the heaviest storms obviously still offshore, but they are beginning to lash the coastline as well. We're starting to see some winds pick up. Now, the good news is for the Tampa Bay area, and I can use this tool to measure just how far away the center of circulation is, we're not going to get hurricane force winds. The center of Idalia is basically 120 miles west of the coast of Florida. So the hurricane force winds will stay offshore for those areas. They'll start to see their winds pick up a little bit. Those numbers that you actually see right now, and I'll zoom in on that area, those are going to be let me get this off the screen. Those are going to be the wind gusts from our METAR sites. So like Sarasota, the last hour reported a 32 mile an hour wind gust, not sustained winds, but gusts. 29 up towards the Clearwater area, 24 in Tampa. So, again, nothing too significant as of yet, but the winds will be picking up overnight, at least to some tropical storm strength. But the hurricane force winds, that's really going to be all about where Idalia makes landfall up into the Big Bend area for us here. It also looks very impressive on satellite imagery. So let me take the radar off, put on the satellite imagery for us here. And again, very classic looking. All the dark areas, those are the deepest convection areas, the highest cloud tops wrapping around the center of circulation that allows the eye to warm, exposes that eye. And that's what we see with a strengthening storm, and that's what Idalia has shown throughout the day. And again, all of that is wrapping all the way around the center of circulation. Now, Idalia might be actually going close to an eye wall replacement cycle, meaning that we might level off the intensity here, at least for the next several hours. We would expect it to pick back up again as we head towards daybreak on Wednesday, which is why the Hurricane Center is still showing strengthening. So let's now look at some of the potential with the system here. We'll start off with the wind. I'm going to put on what the computer is showing as far as the wind potential. In blue, you're going to see those are tropical storm force winds. The purple is going to be your hurricane force winds, and then that pink, the potential major hurricane force winds. Obviously, we're kind of in between data points here, right at landfall, but you would understand that the hurricane force winds will be moving on shore. Right now, landfall is forecast to be, again, east of Apalachicola Bay. There's Cedar Key, but all of that inundation of water, the storm surge, will occur along and east of the center of circulation. It's a wall of water that's going to get pushed with the counterclockwise winds, which will spin around. And so there's a lot of the coastline where the wind is going to be significant, but the storm surge, the water inundation threat is going to be potentially even catastrophic. Taking a look at that forecast from the Hurricane Center, this is peak storm surge, 10 to 15 feet in that Big Bend area, including Cedar Key. And Cedar Key is basically a small chain of islands that's basically offshore. So a 10 to 15 foot storm surge could be catastrophic to that area, and then all the way up towards Apalachicola Bay, even 7 to 11 feet down towards Yankeetown. That include places like Inglis and Homosassa and Crystal River. And then you even have 4 to 6 foot in Tampa, which can cause some issues. And we're also on a full moon phase, astronomically high tides. It's all coming together to be a significant storm surge along the west coast. And again, even the orientation of the Big Bend almost allows more water to gather as we have Idalia coming through. So let's go back here. That's the wind. I want to now switch over, and I'm going to take off some of this information, and I want to get over to what our computer models are saying. I want to start with the rainfall potential, and this is going to be from the HRRR model, which is slightly west of the consensus. It does take the center a little bit closer to Apalachicola Bay, but you can just see that classic, hurricane signature on radar. First of all, the eastern side is your dirty side of a hurricane. It's got the strongest winds and the heaviest rainfall, and that's for the entire peninsula of Florida as we go overnight into Tuesday morning. Then a good portion of the northern side of Florida through Tuesday afternoon, and then the tropical storm conditions will be pushing into southern Georgia as well. But I also want to look at the wind gust potential as well, put that into motion, and then I can actually pause it as it gets up here, and we'll take a look at some of those winds. Again, this is the HRR model, and you can see that wind is a little bit farther west than where the Hurricane Center has, where they think it's going to make landfall. But again, these models are always slightly different. Can zoom in on this area here, and we can take a look. You can see that it is forecasting winds in triple digits. You know, that 110 to 115 as the Hurricane Center was talking about. There's your eye. Obviously, there's no wind right around the eye, but you can see how far away from the center of circulation these hurricane force winds extend. So that's a massive amount of hurricane force winds well away from the center of circulation. This model would have the hurricane force winds staying away from Cedar Key, but again, it's a little bit farther to the west than most models. If I switch over to the GFS model for us here, take a look at that, put that into motion, it'll show you a little bit different solution, not a horribly different solution. I can back that up, but you can see the winds are slightly farther off towards the east, but again, significant winds there. You can see it has at least 90-mile-an-hour winds, and that might be a little bit underdone. There we go. If I take it offshore, now you have those winds approaching at least 100 miles an hour. And these are sustained winds, by the way, which would be on the eastern side, which you would expect. And then we would probably have close to hurricane force conditions close to Cedar Key as it moves on shore. But just a kind of a couple of different models showing you what the wind potential is going to be out of Idalia for us here. So one more look. I want to put back on kind of all of the information that we have for us here. Once again, winds are 105 miles an hour. But Idalia is forecast to strengthen to a Category 3 with winds of 115 miles an hour with a landfall early, at least during the morning hours on Wednesday along the Big Bend of Florida. So I already mentioned the storm surge graphic. There's one more look at. There'll even be a little bit of storm surge on the northeast coast of Florida, if you can believe that. But the other thing I want to mention too is obviously we cover the Caribbean, and I did want to talk about the marine forecast for the northwest sides of the Bahamas, including Grand Bahama. First of all, we've had some dangerous easterly swells the last day because of Hurricane Franklin out in the Atlantic. Well, now our winds are going to swing out of the south as Idalia moves up Florida's west coast, and they're going to get very significant. For Wednesday, you should expect winds of 20 to 30 knots, but gusts up to 40 knots. Seas will be all over the place, kind of averaging 3 to 5 feet, a little bit lower in sheltered areas, but in the exposed waters of the Atlantic, you should expect a 7 to 11-foot swell. The Bahamian Meteorological Organization there has actually issued a do not venture from port advisory, basically saying stay in port, don't go out in these conditions, because seas are going to be much higher in those exposed waters when you combine the very strong south winds and then the seas in the exposed areas of 7 to 11 feet. Very, very dangerous conditions for small craft. You are urged to stay in port over the next several days until those winds and seas relax. Friends, that's the latest. We'll continue to keep you updated right here on Meteo Mundo. And if you do like our content, please like and subscribe to the channel. We'd appreciate that. We're Meteo Mundo.